What you are seeing right now is not Minecraft. A couple days ago, this game called Cubyz popped into my recommended feed. Free to play, community driven, and I didn't expect much, but after walking around and actually playing it, I realized this tiny beta game has fixed a very specific issue I have with Minecraft currently. This is wild because Cubyz is literally in version 0.0.0, which means that this game is at its most raw, most unfinished form, and there's barely any content, but it looks very polished. There are no bosses, not a ton of items, but what it actually does focus on is where things actually get very interesting. This is my first rawest view of the game, and I will be experiencing what the game is like in terms of content, terrain, items, buildings, crafting, and so much more to see if this is worth playing. So stick around for that. There's a lot that I like about Minecraft. Crafting system is very solid, and the items are very creative, especially lately. But the one thing that kills me about this game is the exploration. It is just not rewarding. In the early game especially, you're not really encouraged to explore much as you are to get resources very early. You have to spend a lot of time getting food. You have to spend a lot of time working up to get an efficient way of getting like an elytra or something. And in order to use an elytra properly, you have to get mending, and you have to get mending through villagers, and you also have to spend some time making a farm, maybe like making a creeper farm or whatever, to get the rockets that you need so you can travel very effectively. You don't really have that many options when it comes to early game exploration, like maybe you can get a boat to go faster in water. That's kind of it. It doesn't really help that much. And most of the Minecraft's overworld is just very bland. Like, why would you go to an area and travel thousands of blocks to see a biome that is slightly more trees or slightly less trees? A lot of it looks the same, and you're not really playing for the exploration point of the game. And they have tried to fix this issue in 1.18. They upped the height limit to fix terrain generations for mountains, but that's not really kind of a long-term fix. Meanwhile, Cubyz kind of came along and asked, what if we didn't have these limitations? What if I could generate infinitely and higher without caps? And you might be asking, how is that possible? Cubyz was originally written in Java like Minecraft, but back in 2022, the developers actually completely rewrote it in a language called Zig. Now you might be asking, who even cares about what language it's written in? But actually it does matter, because Zig is faster and smaller than Java. More importantly, it was designed to be readable so people can contribute more. It makes it easier for the community to add stuff and to fix problems. Now the way that Cubyz actually generates terrain is fundamentally different. Cubyz uses a 3D chunk generation instead of generating flat layers like Minecraft does. Cubyz generates terrain in 3 dimensions at once. This means caves, mountains, valleys, and everything else is based on actual terrain logic rather than just stacking noise layers on top of each other. This result actually feels very natural. Mountains actually flow very nicely and the terrain connects to each other. The biomes gradually transition instead of very abruptly. On top of this, Cubyz actually uses something called level of detail rendering, which means the further away something is, the less detailed it becomes. You might actually know this from a mod called Distant Horizons, which actually does the same thing, but instead of having to download a mod, you actually just have it to go as soon as you download this game. But the way that it works is your computer still renders it, but it uses fewer resources. It lets you see across the entire landscape without your frame rate tanking. But when you get up close to it, it renders things in more detail. That's why you kind of see things getting better the closer you look at it. One of the things I wanted to explore was how long I could climb a mountain until I became bored. You might be asking, why is this important? But Cubyz mountains are way larger than Minecraft mountains, and the player doesn't have anything in terms of tools to help them climb. One of the things I wanted to test was how fun passive travel could be, because that is one of the selling points to this game, is to travel and share your traveling with others. So one of the things that Cubyz has to offer is its stunning terrain, and one of the main selling points, at least like why you should play the game, is climb the environment and to look at the environment and to share your findings with other people. But I want to know how easy it is to actually just climb whatever. Like, I see the top of that mountain and I'm like, yeah, I kind of want to get to the top, but I want to see how long it would take me. Now, something that I've always kind of thought about, especially with Minecraft, is I like it when a game like this that encourages exploration will give the player a reason to want to explore. I always feel like having the player passively explore things is honestly one of the best ways to kind of go about exploration, because I feel like a lot of times when Minecraft does add a new biome or something, or add something to the game, you're not really playing it for the transportation aspect. You're playing it for, you know, like finding that new biome or something. Like, I'm thinking about like the creekers. These are interesting, like little, you'll see these little cave generations, and sometimes they'll be on the side of a mountain or something like right over there. but most of the time when something comes out, like I'm thinking also like woodland mansions and stuff, right? Where most of the time people will look for a certain biome, not because they actually enjoy like exploring. They have to get somewhere and they'll kind of like put up with the exploring aspect. I feel like in order for something like this to be interesting or be fun for most players, I'm not saying like all players, because I think some people will just have fun regardless of the challenges, I guess, that they face. They would be like, okay, yeah, this is fine to just scale something like this. I'm gonna try to not break any blocks when I try to go to the top of this mountain, but it's gonna be kind of difficult. Let's see how far I get until sundown. I think having have those things like hiker picks or something. I honestly think having hikers picks or something where you can climb these like vertical like blocks or whatever, like having a tool set for climbing would be so invaluable, because right now I'm like 4 minutes in. I mean, it's not like terrible. Climb is not awful, but it is getting a little difficult. I think I'm just gonna have to make a staircase up. I think that's just gonna be my easiest option. And it's like nighttime. I really like what they did with the nighttime shaders, because you can't see anything. And there's like a lot of stars. Yeah, it'll get to a point where you get something like this, where it's like, you know, I'm gonna set the time to 0, where you get something like this and it's almost gonna be like impossible for you to get up, you know? Yeah, this would have been very hard to traverse. Like, this is all just vertical, like whatever. This would be so difficult to like actually climb. That's what I kind of mean with having like tools for exploration or something. It's like I like the theory crafting really big mountains or really big like terrain generation and stuff, but in order to get to the top of this, or in order to actually spend a lot of time going up, you're gonna need some help. You're gonna need like some item or something to kind of encourage you to do that. I think one of the main things with exploring is you kind of have to make it fun for the player. It's not just enough to kind of like just put them in the world, because you really should have these utilitarian items, which basically mean that you don't have to like place items, but they basically work like in your offhand or something. Like imagine you have like a trident or something that can like pull you up or whatever, you know, because having to traverse this, either having to manipulate the environment somehow or trying to work around it, is not very fun in the slightest. I like the terrain generation. I'm not saying like make it more flat or make it whatever, you know, create tools that will help the player kind of get around it. And you kind of already seen this like it's actually funny because a lot of people were talking about the caves, and I just kind of want to show you something with the cave systems. If I can go in the ghost mode or whatever, you might see this game has a massive cave system. I'll go like very far down and you'll see like these cave systems are incredibly convoluted. This entrenched, someone in their Discord actually made like a rope or something, where if you find a cave that you like, you can just like place down a rope or something, and then you can reach the bottom and then climb up, which I think is absolutely amazing, absolutely stunning that they were able to make something like that. And I think you should add that to the game immediately, right? Kind of a duty to your players to encourage exploration, especially if they want to go that route, because I feel like, again, with Minecraft, originally it was supposed to be that exploration. It was originally supposed to be, you know, the player goes around like finding unique things, but eventually that can get phased out if you don't encourage the player to do that enough. Create items, create something to make the player actually want to go out and explore. Something else that is very unique to this demo is actually the crafting system. There are technically two, one in the player's inventory and one where you actually make the crafting tables for the tools. We'll be talking about the tool one mainly. Originally, the plan for this crafting system was to create a procedural crafting, which allows the player to make a list of any combinations to their heart's content. And this is a very bold idea, one that I think could work eventually, but you have to realize when you're making a game, sometimes the scope will be a little too large. And unfortunately, this kind of got changed or dumbed down due to min-maxing materials. Like, instead of making something that looks like a shovel, you would make something that looks like a square, because technically it was more effective. At least in the short term, there was a change made to have specific crafting grids that you can make whatever you want with any materials and any combination to their heart's content. There is a chart for materials that I think is interesting, and you could actually create a whole lot of interesting combinations. You could still get that infinite effect. I actually really like this change, and I love both this and the crafting system. system, and at least in its current state. It reminds me a lot of Tinker's Construct, where the player has more freedom to create the tools they want. However, unlike Tinker's Construct, it isn't really a lot of variance with the tools or the modifiers. Like Tinker's Construct, you can actually add a vine to an axe and make it auto regenerate. In older versions of Tinker's Construct, you could actually make a lava crystal, and it was a modifier used to act like a furnace. Now, this game has a lot of materials, and you could do a lot with those materials, but it doesn't exactly have a lot of variance. Part of the fun when making items or making anything is to create something that maybe someone else hasn't created before, having a lot of different combinations, having a lot of different things to do. And when I was testing it out, I felt like I was making the same item more often than not, and I honestly can't blame the game. Right now, this is the very, very basic version. Another thing I would like to talk about is the UI, and even though it is fine for now, the UI is going to be a problem when you have more tools, as it will become increasingly cluttered. I suggest maybe putting buttons on like the left side or something like that. People don't have to flick through everything, because right now like 4 is fine, like 4 tools, but when you add like 10 or 11 or 12, it will become a little more annoying. But this was a great start nonetheless, and I overall enjoyed the crafting system. One of the last things I wanted to check out was the chisel. Now, something you can do with the chisel that you can't do with regular Minecraft is, yeah, look, you got a vertical slab right here. That's actually very funny. But yeah, the chisel is basically this version's way of making stairs and, you know, making slabs, of course. And I really do like in theory, the concept of the chisel. I actually wish there was something you could do with the chisel where you can make it go more in depth. And I think it has its advantages and disadvantages. One disadvantage, I would say, especially after making a house, and I spent a whole process and time trying to make something that looks nice, the fact that the chisel takes very long for very long projects. Like if you are using the chisel and you're actively using it a lot, you're going to have a lot more time where it's going to be very difficult to build with it very long term, especially for a very big project. Like for small stuff, it's fine, but I personally wouldn't use this to replace stairs or anything. But it is overall really surreal to just kind of be able to use something like this and get vertical slabs. That's really cool. Building does feel a little clunky. There is a tool called the selection wand where you can copy and paste things, but the commands are kind of weird. I personally would like some UI, like an axiom does a pretty good job, or if someone can make an axiom add-on, that would be pretty cool, because again, building is really, really weird in this. I'm gonna set time to 0. Let's say, for instance, right, I make a stair and I want to place something behind that. You can't do that, right? And I ran into this problem a lot. It'd actually be kind of funny to do this mechanic or something where, imagine you made a hole or something like this. You can't really place anything through here, even though this is kind of a window, right? It's kind of a full block or type of deal. And the way that the selection tool works is, imagine you just want to copy and paste this grass / copy. Yep. And it would tell you your chords. And let's say I wanted to copy and paste it up here or something. It would paste the block to where you were standing on, just kind of how World Edit does it. And I think this is kind of cool. I mean, I would definitely rework it a little bit to make it easier, but overall, no complaints other than that. And overall, I think Cubyz is an incredibly ambitious project. The person who created it has been working 6 years on it, and it's completely free. You can try this out today, and you can look at all the beautiful terrain and all the different things this game has to offer. There really is so much that you can do, and so much that you can explore and share. The Discord is in the description down below. And if you want to see future updates come out, or you have anything to add that you think would be cool, add it to the description down below. I would like to hear it.